In early 19th century, the Ottoman Empire was in crisis. In the Balkans, the Greek population revolted against the occupying Turks, resulting in the Greek War of Indepedence. The Sultan requested aid from Muhammad Ali Pasha, the governor of Egypt, to suppress the rebellion. However, he was defeated by an intervention of the European powers at Navarino. In compensation for this loss, Muhammad Ali demanded the territory of Syria. The Ottomans were indifferent to the request, and Muhammad Ali prepared for a conquest of Syria. Muhammad Ali Pasha of Egypt is recorded as planning to extend his rule to the Ottoman Empire's Syrian provinces as early as 1812, secretly telling the British consul of his designs on the territory that year. This desire was left on hold, however, as he consolidated his rule over Egypt, modernizing its government administration, public services, and armed forces, and suppressing various rebellions, including Mamluk and Wahhabi uprisings on behalf of Sultan Mahmud II. In 1825, the Sultan again called on Muhammad Ali to suppress a local uprising, this time a nationalist revolution by Greek Christians. He was promised rule over Crete, Cyprus, and the Morea, the modern Peloponnese, for his services. His son, Ibrahim Pasha, won quick victories at the head of a conscript army and controlled nearly the entire Peloponnesian peninsula within 10 months of his arrival in February 1825. The Greeks continued guerrilla operations, however, and by September 1827 public opinion in Russia, Britain, and France forced the great powers to intervene in favor of the Greeks. The joint British-Russian-French fleet destroyed Muhammad Ali's fleet that October at the Battle of Navarino, and Ibrahim's forces were expelled from the Morea a year later following the arrival of a French expeditionary force and a settlement negotiated by the European powers. Once Ibrahim and his forces returned from Greece, preparations to wrest control of Syria began in earnest. The governor of Acre, Abdullah Pasha ibn Ali, was harboring fugitives of the Egyptian draft and was said to have refused a request to contribute towards Muhammad Ali's war effort. With these insults as pretext, land and sea forces under the command of Ibrahim Pasha were sent north to besiege Acre in October 1831. The city fell to Ibrahim's army 6 months later in May 1832. After Acre, he continued on to win control of Homs, Beirut, Sidon, Tripoli, and Damascus. The armies sent by the Sultan and various local governors were unable to check Ibrahim's forces, notably at the Battle of Homs, considered to have decided the fate of Syria. Having triumphed in Homs, Ibrahim occupied Hama and Aleppo, heading for the Belan Pass, situated between Antakya and Skanderun. This pass was the key to the heart of Ottoman Turkey, Asia Minor. The then ongoing Tanzimat reforms of Mahmud II had experienced significant difficulties in adopting the innovative military methods of conscription and mass drill then being implemented in European armies, but Muhammad Ali had managed to adopt both. Ibrahim's overwhelming success cannot be attributed only to modern organization, however. His officers had significantly more experience than their Ottoman counterparts, having borne the brunt of fighting in the empire's two most recent major wars against the Wahhabi and Greek rebellions, and he attracted significant local support to his cause by calling his campaign one for liberation from the Turkish yoke. With the provinces of Greater Syria under his control, the Egyptian army continued their campaign into Anatolia in late 1832. On November 21, 1832, the Egyptian forces occupied the city of Konya in central Turkey, within striking distance of the imperial capital of Constantinople. The Sultan organized a new army of 80,000 men under Reshid Mem Pasha, the Grand Vizier, in a last-ditch attempt to block Ibrahim's advance towards the capital. While Ibrahim commanded a force of 50,000 men, most of them were spread out along his supply lines from Cairo, and he had only 15,000 in Konya. The final battle of the campaign of 1831-1832 came at Konya on December 18 to 21, 1832. Several minor clashes between advanced elements and scouting parties of the two armies took place on December 18 and 19. The main battle took place on December 21, 1832, astride the Konya-Constantinople road, just north of the ancient walled town of Konya, which, in 1832, had a population of about 20,000. The battlefield is bounded on the west by hills and on the east by marshes and swamps, with a plateau about 3 kilometers wide in between. The Egyptian army had its back to the town and faced north, and the Ottoman army approached from the north astride the road, facing south. December 21st was an intensely foggy day. Ibrahim's army was organized into 3 rows astride the road. The first row consisted of the 13th and 18th Infantry Regiments, with 3 artillery batteries under Sila Melmanstali. The second row, 500 paces behind the first, consisted of the 12th and 14th Infantry Regiments with 2 artillery batteries under Solomon AI Faransoy. The third row consisted of the Guards Regiment and 1 artillery battery in reserve and the 1st and 2nd Cavalry Regiment under Selim Bey. Ibrahim posted 2 battalions in square formation at the flanks to guard against encirclement. Reshid's army was organized into 4 rows, advancing astride the road. Leading the advance were 2 regular cavalry brigades and the Guards Infantry Brigade in open formation. These were followed by a second row of 2 infantry and 2 cavalry brigades, then a third and fourth row, each consisting of an infantry brigade. Large numbers of irregulars made up the rear. Artillery was distributed amongst the army. At about noon, the advancing Ottomans' artillery opened fire when the front lines were about 550 meters apart. With the heavy fog, the range was spotty, and the Egyptian artillery held their fire until they could guess the Ottomans' positions from the sound of their cannonade, and so could find their range more precisely. As the artillery exchange thundered on, Ibrahim advanced with his scouts to a well east of the road to survey the Ottoman positions. During a momentary lifting of the fog, he noticed a gap in the Ottoman formation between their cavalry and infantry on their left flank to the east. He rapidly called his reserves the Guards Brigade and the 2 cavalry brigades and personally led them into this gap between the road and the marshes, causing confusion in the Ottoman left flank by this sudden onslaught, as some of their cavalry was trapped and scattered in the foggy marshes. As the Ottoman left flank collapsed, the Grand Vizier Reshid Pasha personally moved to their midst to rally them, but in the foggy confusion found himself surrounded by Egyptians and captured. The capture of their supreme commander deepened the confusion amongst the Ottomans, and some units lost cohesion and broke ranks as the Egyptian artillery and cavalry advanced around their left flank to their rear, enveloping the now disorganized units and continuing a relentless slaughter from 3 directions: south, east, and north. As night fell, the new Ottoman commander managed to rally some units and organized a desperate counter-attack from the west against the Egyptian left flank, but this failed as the Egyptians sent a wheel to face them with an organized barrage of artillery, and as this attack broke, the remaining Ottomans scattered. Konya was Ibrahim's greatest victory. He lost 262 dead and 530 wounded, whereas the Ottomans lost 3,000 dead and over 5,000 taken prisoner, including many senior officers, including Reshid Pasha. The Egyptians remained in possession of the field and took 46 guns, and the Ottoman army was scattered. Nothing remained between Ibrahim's army and Constantinople after the battle. With no military forces between the Egyptian army and Constantinople, the Ottomans suffered a humiliating defeat by the hands of the Egyptians. Egypt had conquered almost all of Turkey besides the city of Constantinople, where severe winter weather forced him to make camp at Konya long enough for the Sublime Porte to conclude an alliance with Russia and for Russian forces to arrive in Anatolia, blocking his route to the capital. The arrival of the Russian power would prove to be too great a challenge for Ibrahim's army to overcome. Wary of Russia's expanding influence in the Ottoman Empire and its potential to upset the balance of power, French and British pressure forced Muhammad Ali and Ibrahim to agree to the Convention of Kudahaya. Under the settlement, the Syrian provinces were ceded to Egypt, and Ibrahim Pasha was made the Governor-General of the region. The treaty left Muhammad Ali a nominal vassal of the Sultan. 6 years later, when Muhammad Ali moved to declare de jure independence, the Sultan declared him a traitor and sent an army to confront Ottoman Pasha, launching the Second Egyptian-Ottoman War.